What is up, my fellow Guardians? It is your boy Turk here at SGN Hub, bringing you another Destiny 2 Titan build. And this one may be a little bit normal for you guys, or something you may have seen a bit, but this is going to be another Bolt Charge Titan build. Yes, we all have come to love Bolt Charge in Heresy. I know there's a lot of Bolt Charge builds out there, but honestly, I think this may be the one that has been most efficient for me and honestly completely carried me through Heresy, and also allowed me to carry a couple friends through some GMs and do a lot of harder content with them that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to, and I was able to get some friends back in the game. This build manages to not only be able to handle itself pretty well in ad dense combat, but also champion dense areas as well as any endgame activity. With the loadout that we have access to all three of the champion mods, obviously Anti-Barrier, Unstoppable, and Overload. It may seem like I don't have Overload, but the Overload is actually being taken care of by our primary weapon, which is the rank angle. So with that being said, we will first and foremost hop into the weapon loadouts, and then we can talk about the fragments, aspects, and all that other jazz slightly after, as well as any form of gameplay loop. But realistically speaking, this is a bolt charge build, so the only loop that there's going to be is whenever you put your barricade up, and you don't necessarily always have to play behind your barricade. That's the one thing that I do like about this build is, yes, you have that bolt charge and it is extremely powerful and we all know when to utilize it, but this allows you to step out and kind of take care of things without really worrying about dying. So first and foremost, we're talking about rake angle, and obviously this is the adept version. The one that I currently have has overflow and chill clip. I do believe it rolls with replenishing Aegis, but I personally find overflow to be a little bit better. And it also has the double roll with it being adept, has lead from gold, but truth be told, I never ever use that one. I find overflow to be extremely useful, especially this season, given a lot of the mods that we have. When you're picking up special ammo bricks, it overflows the magazine. And we have some stuff in the seasonal artifact mod that actually allows special bricks to spawn more. So even though those bricks would typically give you 1 to 2, if you have that bonus reserve space, it will still fully overflow your glaive and have that chill clip for almost 10 to 12 shots, if not more, if I'm not mistaken, because it overflows up to 17 to 18 shots. And the overload that I was mentioning is also something that's going to be handled by the rake angle, because it is, obviously it has chill clip. You could also rock something like Tenacious Mastery to handle the unstops and the overloads. Obviously, Tenacious is the rocket sidearm from Iron Banner, but I am personally a big fan of the rake angle. It adds another level of survivability to the kit since you can block. And I think that's really about it. And obviously you have the choices of Vanguard's Vindication. This one right here, in my opinion, is probably, I'd say, the most useful if you're doing solo content or even in groups. A lot of people don't really pay as much attention to the origin traits, especially on a lot of the adepts. But Vanguard's Vindication is great. Yes, you get the final blows to get some health, but I've found that especially in endgame content, for me personally, Stunning Recovery is my go-to. Stunning a champion refills your magazine, triggers health regen, and improves recovery for a short duration. And to synergize that even further, simply stunning a champion in the artifact mod also allows you to cast or fully charge your bolt charge stacks as well. So now that's our primary slot taken care of, we will move into our second slot. And in our second slot, we have something that, in my opinion, is absolutely the definition of FOMO. I wasn't on board with the Division at the beginning of the season because, honestly, it's been a while since I've been a sidearm person. The last sidearm I was a big fan of was Mikhail's Reverence, and that's obviously the Strand sidearm where, there's no burst fire, it's just rapid fire, you're just unloading. And the only one I think similar to this one that I did enjoy was the Breachlight. And I, of course, actually have it here, is the Breachlight. It's another one of the 2 burst heavy bursts. And I've been a big fan of these for quite some time now, honestly, but I wasn't sure that I wanted to get rid of the second slot given how big of a Peacekeeper fan I was. I wasn't sure that I was ready to swap my secondary slot of my beloved Parabellum, which is, a lot of you guys here at the channel know that the Parabellum is my favorite, but I delve into Arc with the Division. Now, the Division, it comes from, it's a seasonal weapon, obviously, from Heresy. I got my Division while I was running Court of Blades. Obviously, it is the Adept version, so you have access to some extra mods that you can put on your weapon. You don't have the perks themselves, unfortunately. One thing that really was a big letdown, I would say, and I'm not trying to complain a little bit, but for some reason, we have these adept weapons, but they do not come with the Runneth Over perk. And that genuinely confused me because I was farming very, very, very hard for a Mirror Imago, the shiny version. And I think the distinction between shiny and the adepts, it's kind of weird because obviously the shinies come fully gold and they're modded. They have that Runneth Over perk. And I felt like the adepts were supposed to kind of have like a leg up, but they don't necessarily have that. And it feels a little, I'm not sure. It feels a little unbalanced or just strange that the adept versions would not come with the double origin trait of runneth over. But regardless of it not having runneth over, this weapon is an absolute beast. And the roll I have in particular is insane, and it's far better than I honestly expected it to be. I was lucky enough to get a very, very fair amount of range on this weapon. And you could obviously increase the range as well, and you can even increase the mag up, as you can see, to 40. And that's going to let you proc and use Volt Shot with Eddy Current a lot if that is what you chose. But I chose to go with Flared Magwell for that faster reload. I know Eddy Current gives that to you, but as you can see, that reload drops down to 8, and that's just not something I'm comfortable with having. The thing that I like the most about this weapon, honestly, is how quickly you're able to proc that Volt Shot along with Eddy Current. Eddy Current was definitely like not a top rate perk, but over time, it's definitely found its way into the spotlight and absolutely into my inventory as well. So if you don't have a good roll of the Division, I highly, highly recommend going to get one, particularly with Volt Shot and Eddy Current if you are a big fan of Bolt Charge or Arc in general. This weapon absolutely carries, and it does far more damage than I think you would expect it to be. Obviously, it's that heavy burst frame, very similar to that Breach Light, and obviously some past weapons like the Empirical Evidence. Obviously, Empirical Evidence was more of a PvP weapon, but kind of just to get you in the mindset of what kind of weapon you're getting set up for if this is what you're going to farm. And lastly, we have our exotic. And I believe this exotic is one that's been my favorite for quite some time, and it just fits in so well with the build. And I'm not sure what I could use to replace it. Obviously, you could put something like Thunderlord or something to proc that exotic combo with the precious scars that we have. But this, I think, just really is the icing on the cake for an arc build, especially. It's obviously going to help you proc that Bolt Charge, as we've seen with Sundered Doctrine whenever that first came out, how popular Anarchy was. But what this allows you is not only that consistent DPS whenever you're doing things in endgame situations, but if you're actually able to, haul off and use it as more of an area denial frame, the thing that a lot of people aren't anticipating is that extra healing that you're getting from something like Precious Scars. Since you're not able to always constantly nab kills with your Division, I found it's actually extremely useful to set this thing up and deny some spots. A lot of people tend to only use it for damage phases or bosses, but I highly encourage you to use one or two just to kind of maybe like a trip mine type situation, or really just use it the way that I wouldn't say that it's intended, but the way that it's able to be used rather than strictly saving your bolts for those larger targets. A lot of the times you always are going to have ammo for this. I know they did do something to make the reserves a little bit more sustainable in the past, and it definitely shines here on the Anarchy. Obviously, the exotic trait, grenades stick to surfaces and chain arc bolts to other mines. One of my favorite things to do with this weapon, especially whenever I'm like farming for weapons in like a master lost sector or something, is I'll just attach 2 of these to one champion, attach 2 to the other one, and then maybe 2 to like a boss or something. And they just typically will just run into each other or run around, or they'll just drag these arc bolts around. And all the while that this is happening and killing ads that are around it, you're actually getting that restoration healing, not only for yourself, but also your teammates. Now, I feel like we went over the exotic weapons and how to use them and what we're doing with them pretty well enough. But now we can talk about our exotic, and it's a really simple one, and I feel like one that doesn't get nearly as much spotlight, at least in Arc, as I feel like it should. A lot of times when I see Precious Scars, it's being used with Solar, but today we are using it with Arc. And Precious Scars reads as follows for the exotic trait. Final blows from weapons with a damage type matching your super create a burst of healing around you that grants allies restoration. After reviving or being revived, you gain an aura that provides overshields to you and nearby allies. Now, I was running this build with a friend of mine who's extremely low light level. I wouldn't say extremely low, but just under leveled for doing GMs. I know we have the scaling factor to the highest light level teammate, but he absolutely loved the fact that I was running this because his build wasn't fully set together. Whenever I would res him, he had a little bit more breathing room from that overshield, and just the constant healing and the burst of healing from getting kills with the Division or the Anarchy was able to help sustain and get him through the GM. And that's the one obviously this week. I believe it's Sunless Cells. And that it was, got through that with relative ease with 2 of us. And I think this build absolutely shines in content like that, where there is a lot of ad density and things that you can kill really just to maintain your health uptime. And that Bolt Charge, along with Anarchy, picks up the slack in a lot of the damage areas. Now, whenever it comes to mods and your stat allocation, obviously that's up to you. I personally always seek to achieve at least 100 resilience. And then once I get to 100 resilience, I try to get 100 discipline. I'm not much of like a triple stat runner. I know having triple stats maybe towards recovery would be phenomenal. But as for right now, with the restoration that we're getting from Precious Scars, 100 resilience is absolutely enough. and you could allocate anything else as you'd like. Now, talking about our mods and stuff, we have powerful attraction and time dilation and outreach in our mark slot, and I have powerful attraction obviously, so I can just grab those orbs rather than having to constantly go out and pick them up. That way we can have that arc surge whenever we're behind our barricade. Next up in our boots, we have double weapon surge. It's going to be arc, but probably should be 3. That's really going to be at your own discretion. Like I said, I just have some extra points towards recovery that could be obviously swapped around. And then next up, we have triple arc reserves, and in our arm slot, arc loader, firepower, and impact induction. Like I said, I feel like a lot of those mods are really going to be at your own discretion and how you want to play with the build, because the way that the build happens and plays in game isn't going to change much, I think, solely off of that. But with that being said, I feel like all of our weapons and armor have been covered, and we can step first and foremost into our class, and then we can step into the artifact afterwards. But now let's talk about our aspects. Obviously, we are using knockout. I feel like personally that's one of my go-to forms of just kind of panic regen on Titan. If you're not able to get a quick 1 or 2 tap with your division, you can then just pop your thunderclap and then get some recharge off that. And more often than not, you have enough health to get back in the fight comfortably without feeling like you're going to go down. And for those that don't know, knockout reads as follows: critically wounding a target or breaking their shield infuses your melee attacks with arc energy and increase your melee range and damage for a short time. Defeating targets with melee attacks makes you amplified and restores a portion of your health, and that's what we're talking about, is getting that health back. Defeating more powerful combatants increases the amount of health restored, but a lot of the times I'm just looking for a red bar to just blast, and then I'm good to go. Next up, we have Storm's Keep. Obviously, that is the bolt charge barricade. I don't feel like there's much to say about that, so I'm not going to sit here and explain that whole entire ability to you guys. You guys see it happen in the gameplay, and for the most part, a lot of us know what bolt charge is and what that lightning strike is. Now for the fragments, we have arc weapon final blows have a chance to create an ionic trace, and collecting an ionic trace grants you a stack of bolt charge. Kind of a no-brainer whenever we're using a division, getting a lot of kills with volt shot, and the thing that I recommend is reloading damn near after every single kill that you get, because it's going to happen so fast. It's just another proc of bolt shot. And next up, we have Spark of Focus. After sprinting for a short time, your class ability regeneration is increased. Next up, Spark of Magnitude. Your lingering arc grenades, lightning grenade, pulse grenade, and storm grenade have an extended duration. And lastly, we have Spark of Haste. While sprinting, you have greatly increased resilience, recovery, and mobility. Kind of like a panic type deal if you're like sprinting around, sliding, and you can pick up those extra shots with your division while you're doing so if you're in a pinch. And that's going to wrap it up for our aspects and fragments. And lastly, we are going to move on to the Tablet of Ruin. This is something that I like to cover. I'm sure that you guys have heard in some of my videos. If you're a returning viewer, I do like covering the Tablet of Ruin, but my thing is I like using builds that will last into the future. I don't necessarily rely heavily upon seasonal artifacts, but these do obviously amplify how well your build is going to perform. So with that being said, we have obviously anti-barrier sidearm, unstoppable glaives. And then next up, you could obviously choose the overlock and load while you're amplified, or have bolt charge. Arc weapons gain increased handling and reload speed. That's something you should have equipped. I simply don't, probably because I was changing it. Other than that, in this slot, a lot of this is going to be something you're not really going to pay much attention to. In the second slot, we have Hold the Line. While surrounded, machine guns and glaives gain increased reload speed and stability. Final blows heal you. This will also really help you out in a pinch with the rake angle. Next up, we have Defeating Arc debuff targets grants bolt charge. This is something that you're going to have equipped, and I was just going through and changing them. As I said, this just isn't equipped for some reason, but it's an absolute go-to. Then we have Flashover. When you gain maximum bolt charge, you also become amplified. Lightning bolts deal more damage, just more stuff going towards that bolt charge. There's so much stuff making bolt charge better this season. I'm genuinely curious if it's even going to be good after it's all said and done. We also have Gold from Lead. Picking up special ammo has a chance to grant heavy ammo. And lastly, we have Defibrillating Blast. Stunning a champion grants maximum stacks of bolt charges. This is what I was referring to earlier with the glaive. Whenever stunning a champion gives you something, triggers an arc bolt that heals you and jolts combatants that it damages. So with all that being said, we have covered the Tablet of Ruin, covered our weapons, mods, armor, and all of that good stuff. I know this is indeed another bolt charge build, but for some reason I don't see too many people giving Precious Scars the love that it deserves on almost any other class other than Solar for some reason. A lot of time when I see people using Precious Scars, it tends to be with the Solar setup, but it works extremely well with Anarchy and the Division, especially in this season. You're getting a lot of heals from all that arc damage and what you're pumping out in the class, and I have an absolute blast running this build. With that being said, it's been your boy Turk here at SGN. Obviously, the link to the build will be in the description. If you're enjoying the builds, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz on any improvements that you could see within the build, or if suggestions that you could see to potentially make it better. It's been your boy Turk here at SGN. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Peace.